Just overall, I just feel happier and better and more of a productive, useful person. I can think more clearly. And yeah, my definitely I have moments of joy for no reason.
Well, welcome everybody. I am Larry, the carnivore pensioner, and with me today is Bridget. Bridget has her own YouTube channel, a fellow YouTuber, and her channel is called The Complex Carnivore. Great name. Um, it's been a great a desire of mine to have Bridget on the program because Bridget has, well, she wears many hats, I guess, but she's a mum and a wife and a very busy person employed, I think, as a dentist, and also somebody who's committed to the carnivore journey. But the thing that fascinates me most about Bridget's story is Bridget has a very long history of experience with weight loss, trial and error, and successes and failures. And this is an issue that I think affects nearly all of us because practically everybody wants to lose weight and for good reason in many cases. But Bridget, it's great to have you on and welcome to our program today.
Well, thank you, Larry. I'm really happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's a pleasure. Look, could you perhaps just begin by sharing some of your history? I think it goes back over 20 years
Oh,
of history with weight loss,
yeah.
particularly, and what's happened in the past and brought you to where you are now.
Yeah, well, I probably started experimenting with dieting when I was about 10 years old, and I'm almost 60 now. So it's been a while, and I've done every diet that there is. And honestly, throughout my younger years, any diet worked. Um, I say that I'm a professional dieter because if I did the diet, I would lose weight, and if I didn't, then I would kind of gain my weight back, and so I just yo-yoed for years. I'd eat McDonald's and cake for a while, and then I would go on some diet and lose the 10, 15, 20 pounds that I wanted to lose. And that worked fine for me until menopause really set in, and nothing worked then. It was almost unbelievable. It was like my body actually was no longer my body. And as the years kind of went on, it just got worse. Like the rate that I was gaining weight just became faster and faster. I got to a point, I was getting ready to, I had some events coming up. So I really wanted to lose some of my weight that I'd gained. And one of my go-tos was to eat salad. If I just ate salad for a couple of weeks, I'd lose weight. So I was getting ready for these events and I really was focused on eating my salad, practically no calories in lettuce and celery and carrots and nothing. I could not lose any weight. Now, if I had a day where I was just like, oh, forget about it and I'll eat, some cookies, I would gain weight almost overnight.
Yeah.
And so this was really bothering me a lot. I had At one point, I did do carnivore, and I had lost like 10 to 15 pounds, but, I at about the 15-pound mark, I plateaued, and I was like, "Well, whatever," and I was thinking of it as a diet. So at that point, I was just like, "Well, whatever," I let it go thinking, "Well, I'll come back around another time when I'm ready to lose weight again." But when I was trying to come back around, uh, nothing was working. And so I even did carnivore for like a couple of days. And when I had done it before for a couple of days, I could feel something changing. But this time I couldn't feel anything changing.
Hmm.
So, and I didn't understand how it worked or why it worked. And so I just kind of just forgot about it. And my brother and I got together one time and he hadn't seen me for a while. And he's like, "Oh, you should try this carnivore diet." And I said, "Oh, it doesn't really work for me." And he's like, "No, no, watch these videos." And so I watched the videos and really started listening to Kelly Hogan and Emily Penton and Stephanie Person, and really listening to their stories. And I was trying to figure out, does it work? How does it work? Why does it work? And one of the things that really got me, because also thinking about giving up sweets forever, baking was a hobby of mine. I really
Yeah.
loved it. I was really proud of myself for how well I could do it. And so thinking of giving that up made me a little sad too,
Yeah.
So I kind of was in a grieving period almost. And on one of Emily Penton's videos, she said she had overcome MS and bipolar disorder.
Mm.
And she said that sometimes she feels joy for no reason.
Yeah.
And that grabbed me and really resonated with me because I realized I'd never felt joy for no reason. I'd felt joy, but it was in response to, I got married or I fell in love or I had a baby or, I had a new career, something that happened. And of course, it would only last for a while, and then you kind of revert back to whatever your regular personality was, and mine basically was being a little bit sad. Even when I had nothing to be sad about, I kind of felt a little bit sad, and life felt hard. I remember as a child, like, going to the bathroom at school and looking in the mirror and thinking, "How am I gonna get through this day?" And I always thought, well, when I grow up and I'm an adult, I'll be happy. And then as an adult, when I was like in my 20s, I remember going to the bathroom in my job and going to the bathroom and looking in the mirror and thinking, I just have to get through this day. And I always just kind of had that feeling like it was hard to get up in the morning and get through the day and just to do things. And so definitely I'd never felt joy for no reason. And I just thought, wow, if that was possible, gosh, if that was possible, it was worth giving up, cookies and cake and pie and all that.
Mm.
So I decided I was going to really try it. And I did. And it took probably a couple of weeks of not feeling good before I started to feel good. And one of the first things I did that I could tell some kind of a difference was that I got up in the morning and I put butter in my coffee and I put the coffee in the blender and I blended it up and I drank that. And after I had that cup of coffee, I felt like somebody had turned a light on in my mind and my brain. And I felt so awake and so alert. And that, just reaffirmed to me that I was on the right track, that this was something that could help me. And so I stuck with it. Probably took a couple of months and I lost 22 pounds. So I was very excited about that. And I was feeling better. Another issue I had that was really bothering me was that I had arthritis that was getting worse and worse. And
Mm.
I'd been trying to figure out a solution to that for the last 12 years and going to all different kinds of doctors and nothing. I did everything. I drank the teas, I took the pills, I did the adjustments, and nothing was really helping me. And that was getting worse and worse. And honestly, I didn't know that that was going to get better on carnivore. I was really focused on my weight. But I was surprised pleasantly that my joints started to feel better. So I'd lost the 22 pounds. My joints were feeling better. They weren't hurting. And, my mind was feeling better. I was feeling a little bit more energetic, a little happier. And so I was sticking with it pretty well. At that point though, I was eating cheese and I was eating macadamia nuts in addition to my ribeye and hamburger and eggs and butter. And then at Christmas, I kind of went off of it for a couple of days and I did have some Christmas cookies and stuff, but then I'd go back on. But the following April, so I started my journey in September of 2022. And in April of 2023, my daughter wanted to visit this college in New York. And so the two of us went to New York. I live in Kentucky, so we flew to New York together. And New York is famous for their thin crust pizza and their bagels. And so I was like, well, for this weekend, it was just a couple of days. I was going to eat that stuff, and it was delicious. It was good. Um, and then I came home. Well, when I came home and I stepped on the scale, I had gained 10 pounds back.
Oh my
I was like,
goodness.
how is that possible? So then I just thought, well, a lot of that must have been water weight, and that's going to come back off in a few days. Well, it didn't. That weight, that point on the scale stayed that way day after day, month after month, for a year. It was a year, and I'd gotten back on my diet. I did not eat carbs, but I was still eating cheese and macadamia nuts. Well, November, so I had my 1-year carniversary, and wasn't where I wanted to be, and so I was disappointed. But what I knew was if I gave it up, I was gonna go back to the joint pain and the sadness, and I was gonna gain weight. The 12 pounds that I'd still had off, I was gonna regain that, and I didn't wanna go backwards. So I really felt like I didn't have a choice but to keep going. In November, for my second daughter's birthday, I had a piece of cake, and I woke up the next morning, and I had mouth ulcers, and my joints were hurting, and I said, "You know what? No more cheating. That's it. I'm not cheating anymore. I don't care what the situation is, I'm not cheating." So, I went through our Thanksgiving, our Christmas, New Year's, Valentine's Day, all that. I did not eat chocolate, I did not eat cookies, cake, nothing like that. And in February, I kinda thought, no, I think in January, I thought, "I'm gonna get rid of the cheese." So I got rid of the cheese, and then it was in February that I said, people do say you're not supposed to really eat nuts." Now, in the Atkins diet, macadamia nuts are okay, but so I'm like, "Okay, I'm gonna get rid of the nuts." And that was in February. And in March, I was feeling kinda good one day, and I thought, "Well, I'll go out for a little walk." Now, I used to walk 5 miles a day, but at this point, I could only walk 2 blocks, and because my knees, even though my joints weren't hurting as much, I still didn't really have the range of motion that I'd had before in my joints, so I didn't go out for long walks, but I'd go out for a couple of blocks, and that was about all I could do. And so this one day, it was, spring was happening here, and I thought, "I'm gonna go out for a little walk." And when I went out for a walk, I realized I had my gait back, like I wasn't hobbling. And I was like, "Wow, this is amazing. And I'm gonna see how far I can walk." And I kept walking and walking, and I ended up walking 3 miles that day. Well, that was it. I mean, I was like a carnivore cult member at that point, because then I knew this was really working. I could feel that, that I was being healed, and of course I was happier, but this was just so exciting that I could walk this 3 miles. And it had been years and years since I'd been able to do that. So I go home, I'm telling everybody, I'm telling my friends, and I just felt even more dedicated to sticking with it. Since then, I've just been getting better, and you know, I was better in June than I was in March and April. I was better in July. It's like that, getting the improvement is accelerating,
Mm.
and I feel better now than I did in July. And I started losing weight again. And so now at this point, I've lost a total of 37 pounds.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah, I
Yeah.
am
Yeah.
really excited. 3 more pounds and I'll be at my goal weight.
Oh, that's so good, so good.
So, yeah.
So when you say things are getting better, you're losing weight, but and you mentioned being able to walk a lot better. So
Mhm.
what other benefits have you noticed as things have progressed?
Well, one of the things is I'm more productive. Like, I used to, I have these hobbies that I do, and, I would get up in the morning, like, on my way to work, and I'd think, "Oh, I could do this or I could do that," and it's like, if I could work on my hobbies then, I'd have energy to do it. But by the time I got through my workday, I would be exhausted, and I would go home and, I'd eat my ribeye or whatever, and, well, actually, it was before I did carnivore, but it still took me a while to get to this point of feeling a lot of energy in the evening, and, I would eat my dinner, and then pretty much I'd go to bed. And then I'd get up in the morning, I'd be like, "Oh, I didn't do anything," I didn't do, because I take drawing lessons, I like to draw, and I have a children's book that I've written, and I wanna illustrate, and I think, "Oh, I didn't do any work on that last night," you know? And this would every day, that's basically the way I was. And if I had to go out to do something in the evening, events for school, my kids' school, it was just so hard. I just felt so tired. Now, I come home from work and I'm like, "Okay, what's next?" And I draw, I go out, I do things, I talk to people. I have so much more energy and I feel so much happier. But also my eyesight, I had gotten to a point where I was very light sensitive. So when I would drive, if it was early in the morning and it was dark outside, I would wear these yellow glasses to block out the blue headlights. But if it was daytime and it was really sunny, I had these purple glasses that I'd wear to block out the sunlight. And then one day I realized, "Oh, I don't even know where my glasses are." That I hadn't been using them and not even thinking about that I didn't need them anymore. Um, so that's one of the things. I had nausea really bad, and I would get up in the morning and I would feel nauseated, and what would make me feel better was to eat. So, back when I was trying to figure out how to lose weight, I my joints were hurting, so I couldn't exercise. I had this nausea that made me eat, like, every hour, and if I would think, "Oh, I'm not gonna eat, I'm just gonna ignore this nausea and it's gonna go away," it did not go away, it just got worse. It got
Mm,
really bad, like, I feel like I was gonna faint or, I was getting sick. As soon as I'd eat a little bit of something, I was perfectly fine again. So I would think, "How am I gonna lose weight if I can't not eat and I can't exercise?" The nausea went away. Um, the brain fog, the exhaustion's gone, my depression's gone. Oh, I had hot flashes. They were really bad. They're not completely gone, but they're way reduced. They're so reduced that I almost don't even notice I have them. Um, I had esophageal spasms sometimes, and that's completely gone. I never have that. What else? My mouth ulcers, I don't ever have that. Yeah, I think that pretty much just overall, I just feel happier and better and more of a productive, useful person. I can think more clearly. And yeah, my definitely I have moments of joy for no reason. And
mm.
I appreciate it very much.
Yeah, isn't it awesome? So if we can just wind the clock back again to the earlier days pre carnivore, you mentioned about trying every diet under the sun, and I
Yeah.
think most of us have been on that journey. And you mentioned that they all worked. Now, why do you think they worked?
Well, I know, I used to think about that too, and I had read an article one time at the New York Times, and they said, "Any diet works because basically it's limiting what you eat." And for me at that time, yes, if I limited what I ate, I would lose weight. And I kind of thought of diets as a game, and I was just playing different games, but I was doing
Mm,
the same thing, you
mm,
know, and I actually used to intermediate fast before we had a word for it. I
yeah.
just found on my own that if I got up and ate breakfast and lunch, and then I didn't eat anything else after lunch until the next day at breakfast, I would lose weight.
Yeah.
But, but with all the diets, I was white knuckling it, with the Weight Watchers and Noom and the soup diet and the egg diet and whatever diet was.
Yeah.
Um, I was waiting to get to my goal weight so that I could stop doing the diet. I was waiting for that event so that I could just eat whatever I wanted. And then, of course, once you start eating whatever you want, it's hard to get back on it. And so I
Mm.
always had that feeling like, oh, got to get back on my diet. But then today I just didn't feel like it, or somebody brought cookies into the office, or, I got invited out somewhere and there was a cake, and then I'm like, okay, tomorrow I'm going to start again. And you wake up in the morning, today I'm not going to have anything bad to eat.
Yeah.
And then by the time you go to bed, you're like, I've, tomorrow's another day. And now
Yeah.
I don't feel that way at all. I'm not
Yeah.
white knuckling it. I feel completely satisfied.
Isn't that great? I know, you know, like you, I tried many of those diets, and they did work for a time, but I was starving,
Right.
and because as you said, you're depriving yourself of food, and so then it becomes a matter of willpower. How long will your willpower hold out?
Right.
And it's a fight you're never going to win, because eventually your hunger hormones are going to take over and you're going to want to eat. And as soon as you do, the weight just comes back on. And
Yeah.
I think this is the experience of many people on those diets. So my question is, why is carnivore different?
Well, because I'm being nourished, when I was walking around eating celery and lettuce, my body was not getting the nourishment that it needed, and it didn't matter how many vitamin supplements I took. And, I was also miserable. I walked around with a headache, and I felt cold most of the time and tired. And this was when I was young, like in my 20s and 30s, and I
Mm,
just was miserable. And I tried to not act miserable, but I was, and I when I could eat, I felt good, but, the sugar, the carbs eventually caught up with me. I remember at one point being on a low-fat diet and eating jelly beans and Twizzlers because that there was no fat in them, you know? And as a with my young body, it was handling it, but, not well, and I didn't know. I did not understand this whole thing about insulin and hyperinsulinemia and
mm,
pre-diabetes, and as I was feeling bad, I kept going to get my glucose checked, and I kept hearing that it was fine. So, but with the red meat and the butter and the eggs and the cholesterol that I'm eating, I my body just is healing with that nourishment that I have been starving it,
yeah.
my whole life.
It's almost like everything that we were told was wrong.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the things we were told not to eat, we are now eating.
Yeah,
And
it's
it's kind of a
crazy.
reverse.
Yeah, I mean, I eat butter straight now, and I can't believe it.
Yeah.
And when I first started doing carnivore, I didn't know about eating the butter that much. I mean, I would eat it a little bit, but when I started learning more about how, butter, how we need this cholesterol in our body for our hormones and our cells, and of course, that rang true because I knew that the cell wall is made of cholesterol. Well, we're made up of our cells, and so if our body is made out of cholesterol, how can cholesterol be bad for
Yeah.
us?
Yeah.
It doesn't make sense that it's bad for us. And so when somebody said, "Eat butter," and I tried it and I started feeling better and better and better, that's what I eat as a snack now. I don't really snack on food in between my meals, but
Mm.
sometimes I do feel like I need a little something. And I have this bag from Land O'Lakes that they actually have made balls of butter.
Yeah.
And I eat one of those balls of butter and I feel fine. And I
Yeah.
keep going.
Yeah.
And I drink some water and I keep
Yeah.
going.
I know for myself, like you mentioned eating salads. Like if I eat a salad, I'm still hungry. It
Oh,
doesn't
yeah.
feel like I've eaten anything, and I want more, and I'm not satisfied. But you sit down with a ribeye steak and eat that, you know you've eaten, and
Yeah,
you feel full and you feel satiated. And I think for me, the key with carnivore is that you're not hungry.
right.
And if you're not hungry, then it's so much easier and so much more sustainable. Even though when you first look at the idea, it seems so extreme. And people say to me, how could you possibly do that? You know, you couldn't live that way. And yet, it's easy. Is that what you find?
Yes, and I don't know how to describe it, because I couldn't believe it either until I experienced it. And, I grew up with you eat a little bit of meat and then you eat a lot of vegetables, and we always had a salad to kinda supplement the meal, and to try to get our vitamins out of our vegetables and everything, and I always left the table even if I ate enough potatoes or noodles or rice for my stomach to feel full, I always still felt a little hungry.
Yeah.
And then what did you we do? We'd get the ice cream out and dish out some ice cream. But I eat a ribeye steak and I melt some butter on I don't do the cheese anymore, but I melt butter on top of it, and I'll have a couple of slices of bacon with it,
Yeah.
and I'm good. I don't
Yeah.
even think about food. It's like my mind is freed up to think about other things and to be creative because I don't have
Mm,
to think about food
mm.
anymore, and I'm
Yeah.
not worried about, "What am I gonna eat the next meal?"
Yeah.
"Oh, I'm hungry now. No, don't eat. Wait a couple more hours." That all that in my head all the time. I don't have that. It's gone.
Yeah, yeah, it's amazing because carnivore starts off about what we eat, about the food that we eat and don't eat, and then it suddenly becomes a head thing. And
Yeah.
I think it's almost 90% headspace and 10%, you know, diet,
Yes.
because things happen in your head, and you just perceive things differently. Your perception of food changes.
Yeah.
Food is so heavily ingrained in our culture. It's in every aspect of what we do, and that changes. And I find for myself, we have a little cafe group that meets fortnightly and has a meal together, and it's a set menu. And so I still go to that group. I don't eat. I just sit there with a glass of water. Now, at first, that felt really weird,
Yeah.
and yet now I don't even think twice about it, and
I
neither
know.
do the people with me. They just think, "Oh, yeah, Larry's on the water."
Yeah.
And,
I have the same thing. I have a dental meeting that I go to once a month, and
yeah,
it's a dinner meeting. And so and everything they serve, if it's meat, it's got a sauce on it.
yeah,
And if it's a vegetable, it's got a bunch of breadcrumbs and whatever on it. And so in the beginning, I would eat some of the meat and kinda, like, try to wipe the sauce off, and I felt terrible when I went home. I did not feel good. So then I got to where I would eat my ribeye before I left the house, and I would get there and I would drink my water or drink a cup of coffee, and I did not eat. I wasn't even tempted. The desserts would come around, and I would pass it on down to the next
yeah,
person.
yeah,
And everybody it's disconcerting for everybody but me, and they're always like, "Yeah, but you paid for this, and don't you wanna get your money's worth and all this whatever?" I was like, "My money is paying the speaker, and I'm fine with not eating the food."
yeah, yeah. The thing I'd wanted to talk a little bit about is I have so many people who have emailed me or put a comment on my videos, and the story is almost always the same. It goes like this: I've started carnivore. I'm a few days in, or a week or two in, and I'm really doing it tough, and I'm not losing weight. I must be doing something wrong. And I can identify with that because when you're doing the work and you're putting it in, and you're suffering,
Yeah,
particularly in those early weeks, and then you get on the scales and you're not losing weight, like your self-esteem takes a massive blow, and you think, oh, this is not working. And um, yeah, I wondered what you would have to say, having come through this yourself, to somebody who'd said something like that to you?
Yeah, because I lived that. I started out watching Kelly Hogan, and she had lost all this weight, and I didn't really know her whole story until a little bit later as I just kept watching her videos. Um, and it just seems so, and so many people get on and go, "Oh, look how much weight I've lost." And in a few months or in a few weeks, I went from a size 15 or whatever, 18 to a size 3, and it's so amazing. And that was not my experience either. And I remember hearing somebody say, well, for some people, you need time to heal. And so give your body time to heal. But I didn't understand what that meant. What was healing? It wasn't until I really got into the science of it that it really started to make sense to me. And the best person for that is Dr. Ben Bickman at
Oh,
Insulin
yes. Why
IQ.
we get sick.
And read that book, Why We Get Sick, and studied it and listened to him. And then I understood. Now, I didn't know to check my fasting insulin at the beginning of my journey. I didn't know that that was even a thing. I got my glucose, meter, and I would test my blood, and I was almost never making ketones. My blood glucose was always fine, but my ketones were, I mean, if I was a 0.5, that was a miracle. And so I got so frustrated with that I just put it aside and I stopped checking them. I'm like, I'm not even going to look at this. I'm just going to stick to the diet. And just recently, I had my fasting insulin checked. And because I had just really learned about how you can go on Own Your Labs and get your
Yeah.
own lab prescription, because I thought I'm going to have to go to the doctor and then they're going to tell me my cholesterol's high and I'm going to have to deal with that. So when I learned about Own Your Labs, I wrote my own prescription there, or put in for it. I took it. It was a couple of Fridays ago, and early in the morning, I showed up. I did the blood test. It was so easy. It was 14 US dollars, cheap. Got my results back about 6 days later, and I was a 6.2. Now, Dr. Bickman says 6 and below is great.
Yeah.
So, and also your insulin fluctuates a little bit, and that was early morning, so I was probably
Mm,
having that dawn effect with my glucose,
mm.
which would make my insulin go up.
Yeah.
I'm saying that's what that point 2 was. So, yeah. But what I think is that in March, when I had that big breakthrough, that was probably when my insulin had come down enough to start to really make a difference in my body.
Yeah.
So I think that's what people are struggling with, is they've got to give their body time for their cells to become insulin sensitive again, and for their fasting insulin levels to come down to normal, so that they can then start to burn fat.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
once I got to that point, I have been steadily losing weight. Not fast. It's been like a half a pound, quarter pound, a pound a week,
Yeah.
but it's been coming down steadily ever since
Mm,
March.
mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. I had a similar experience because this whole thing started for me when I went to the doctor and got tests done, and she said to me, "Oh, you're insulin resistant and you're pre-diabetic. You got a fatty liver, and you've got extremely high blood pressure." And so the only thing she did was to give me a tablet for the blood pressure,
Yeah.
and that didn't work. And she kept increasing the dose. But when it come round for the next lot of blood tests, I had read Ben Bickman's book, and I was wanting to know what my fasting insulin was. But I looked at her script for the test, for the blood test, and it wasn't on there. So I went and did what you did. I ordered one of my own through a private system, and when I went back to her, I showed her the fasting insulin numbers, and she said, "Oh, why did you get that?" And I said, "Well, you told me I'm pre-diabetic and I'm insulin resistant, and I don't want to get diabetes. So I wanted to know what my fasting insulin was. And she said, "Oh, okay, then can I have a copy of that?" I said,
Yeah.
"You could have ordered one."
Right. Well, I'm surprised she knew what hyperinsulinemia was or insulin
Yeah, yeah,
resistance was.
yeah. Look, she's very good in some way. I really feel for doctors. They're trained in a system that is antiquated, and they're locked into a system where if a doctor rocks the boat, they take enormous risk. And
Right.
I look at people like Dr. Sean Baker, who wrote the Carnivore diet book. He lost his medical license, and it cost him hundreds of thousands of dollars in legal fees, and
Wow.
they pay a big price. So I'm
Yeah.
I'm not too critical of doctors, but yeah, we'd love to see more carnivore doctors.
Yeah, well, what's interesting about that and, is that, I'm a dentist, and so sometimes people will ask me questions just about their health, and it's almost always they have inflammation. And so I will say, "Well, people have gotten a lot of relief from whatever it is, your dizzy your, vertigo, your dizziness, or people's jaws. This joint here gets very inflamed,
Mm.
by giving up." And I'll just start with saying, like, "By giving up sugar." And they're like, "What?" And, if I go any much further, they're just like, "Yeah, okay." But you can tell they don't wanna hear it.
You've
They do
lost them.
not wanna hear that they have to give up these
Yeah.
things. And I feel like they look at me like I'm some kind of a hack. There are a couple of people that I've encountered in my practice who are a little bit open to it, but most people aren't. And I don't know what needs to happen to change their minds.
Mm.
But now
Mm.
I have met people that have conditions where they can't eat red meat.
Yeah.
So they are kind of in a pickle as far as to try to do the carnivore diet. They really can't do it.
Mm.
If you get here in the United States, the tick is called the Lone Star tick. And if you get bitten by that, it can transfer this sugar molecule into your body. Then your body sets up an immune response, and you can't eat beef, pork, lamb. You can't dairy products.
Yeah.
You can't eat
Mm.
it. And there's a condition called thalassemia, which is an inherited condition
Yeah.
where your blood cells don't carry as much hemoglobin as normal. And it's easy to get overdosed in iron, which can damage your heart and your liver. And
Yeah.
so people with that have to be careful about eating red meat.
Mm. Mm.
So as much as I want to go up to everybody that I see and say, do the carnivore diet, not everybody really can. And I think that's one thing that I want to tell people, that your diet is a very personal thing for your body. And even if you want to do the carnivore diet and you are doing it, the carnivore diet for you is gonna look different than the carnivore diet
Mm.
for me.
Yeah. There's no one size fits all.
Right. And you have to experiment on yourself a little bit.
Yeah. 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 I know. I made the mistake in the early days with the on carnivore. I was weighing myself every day because that was the issue. That was the pressing issue, and I think that's the case for so many people. That's the reason they start. They want to lose weight. This is a diet. People say it works, so I'll try it, and then they're suffering, and particularly in those first 2 weeks, and
Yeah.
then they're not losing weight, and they become despondent. But I try and encourage people to put the scales away for a couple of weeks and don't even get them out. But if you want to write something down, write down your feelings and your moods and
Oh,
what's
yeah.
happening in your body, and because it's about far more than weight loss. And as you were saying earlier, uh, yeah, you did lose weight, but then all of these other benefits flowed into your life that you were not even expecting or thinking about, and suddenly you think, oh, this is better, oh, that's better, and it has an amazing effect on our whole body, our whole lifestyle. It affects everything from our mental health, to every part of us. And that's, I think, what is so great about carnivore.
Yeah, I agree. Yes. And the increased feelings of happiness, the decrease in anxiety and anger, it is it that by itself is worth the price of admission,
Yeah.
It's wonderful. I feel happier now than I have ever felt in my life.
Yeah, isn't
And
that wonderful?
yeah, it's great.
Yeah,
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 I love
yeah.
it. So,
Oh,
yeah, you
it's
do have to focus on those sort of things. Also, your clothes. I did, even though I wasn't losing weight on the scale, my clothes were becoming a little looser during those
yeah,
times. Um, and yeah, and you just have to really give your body time and be patient with it,
yeah, patience is key.
because it will happen. You just have to keep doing it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. No, it's a great encouragement. And I look back at I'm only a newbie compared to you. I've been on carnivore for 5 months,
Yeah, that's
and,
amazing.
I've lost, about 18 kilos, or must be, I don't know what that is in pounds,
Yeah.
about 35 pounds or
Okay.
so, and,
Great.
but it's been slow, and
Yeah,
I can go a whole week when there's no weight loss, or I might even go up a pound or 2.
yeah,
But now it doesn't bother me. I just think, it's almost a non-issue because I feel so good,
right,
and I know that I have lost weight, and that in the bigger picture, I do lose weight. But if I have a week where it doesn't come off, I don't even bat an eyelid anymore because I'm so caught up in all of the other benefits that I've received. And but I do feel for people who are stuck there and think it's not working for me. There's something wrong with me, or I'm doing something wrong. Well, you're not doing anything wrong. It just
right.
takes time, and
Yeah.
yeah, to press on. Yeah,
Yeah, I know. I remember at one point, I was talking to my brother and I was like, I'm just not losing any more weight. I'm plateaued. And he's like, well, you might want to try fasting. And I did try fasting, but it didn't feel comfortable for me. I know
yeah,
some people they swear by it, and for them it works. For me, I felt like I was back on a diet. And the one thing I love about what I do is that I don't feel like I'm on a diet. And, I didn't know that I needed to just be patient, that it would work. But that's now what I know. And now, like you said, if I go up a pound for some reason, I don't worry about it. I'm not in a big I have 3 pounds to lose to get to my goal weight, but I'm not worried about those 3 pounds.
mm,
My second year carniversary is in September 24th. I think, well, I'll probably have that off by then, and I'm not worried about it anymore, because
yeah,
I really feel like my body is so much healthier than it
yeah,
used to be,
yeah,
and I don't wanna not do the diet anymore. I don't wanna eat the junk that I used to eat.
yeah, yeah. Oh, there's so much we could talk about.
Yeah, I know.
Just tell us a little bit more about your YouTube channel, A Complex Carnivore, and how it's going.
Yeah, well, I'm amazed at how it's going. I started it. I'd been thinking about it for a long time, but I felt like I needed to have some success, before I started it. And really, Dave Mack at No Carb Life,
Yeah,
he inspired me, because I saw that where he put out that call that if you wanted to be interviewed, that he was happy to do
yeah,
that. Then I thought, you know, yeah, I do have a story to tell, and I do wanna tell it, and so I went ahead and I started my YouTube channel, and then I interviewed with him, and what I was really amazed about was that when I posted my first video, I immediately had views,
yeah,
and
yeah,
within an hour, I had subscribers, and within 2 hours, I had more subscribers, and I didn't do anything. I mean, I hadn't been on Dave Mack yet. I didn't do anything but post, and
mm,
that really told me that there was a desire for this information.
yeah, yeah.
And
I
then
think,
after, my interview, my subscribers went up to 96,
yeah,
and I'm like, just so gobsmacked and
Yeah,
grateful that people are interested, and,
yeah.
um
I think, I would love to see every carnivore start a YouTube channel. I think the more voices speaking and the more stories that are shared, the more effective it is.
I
You
agree,
know?
and, that's
Yeah.
what kept me motivated, was
Mm,
watching these videos. In the beginning, when I was feeling tired, I would come home and eat and go to bed, and I'd watch videos, and over, listening to them tell how they lost weight, how they started eating more butter and whatever, and now I'm eating liver, now I'm eating hamburger, now whatever it
yeah,
is, it would just give you things to think about and think, well, maybe I'll try this, or maybe I'll try that, or it just helps you to understand what was going on with the diet, what made it work. And the more I understood, the more ideas I'd get about how to change my eating, the more motivated I felt. And they
yeah,
really kept me going. And so I thought, well, yeah, I would love to do that for somebody else for sure.
yeah. Oh, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
Anyway, look, thank you for coming in today and being part of this. It's been a great delight to have you here. I love your story and I love your enthusiasm and your vibrancy. And I wish you all the best with the YouTube channel and with the ongoing carnivore lifestyle. But Bridget, we really appreciate your time,
Well, thank you, Larry. Thank you for having me. I had a fun time talking to you.
and we'll make some effort to stay in touch, I'm sure.
Okay. Yes, for
Yeah.
sure.
Well, what an inspiring story Bridget had, and I hope it has inspired you all to keep going on this incredible journey of the carnivore diet and lifestyle. If you would like to be a guest on this program, on this channel, I invite you to do so. Simply send me an email. The address is on the screen. It's also in the description below. I would also like to invite you to join our community and become part of our Facebook group. It's simply called the Carnivore Pensioner, and you would be very welcome to join there. Please don't forget to like and subscribe if you haven't already. And I will see you on the next video. Until then, keep telling your story.